Good morning, everyone. I'm here to wake you up because it's Sunday morning, and I'm going to speak about AI and robots and all that sort of stuff, and I would suggest that you will be awake by the end of that talk at the very, very least. Now, knowledge is power. That's what Francis Bacon famously said more than 400 years ago. And I was thinking, how is this actually today? So let me start with a question. Who here knows what an exabyte is? Other than the fact it's a very large number, 10 to the power of 18. You see, I couldn't picture this. So the image you see behind the number, that's the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., which is the largest library in the world, unless you listen to the people from the British Library who think they have about 5 volumes more. But that doesn't matter so much. So the entire printed content of the Library of Congress can be stored on an exabyte. 100,000 times. So last year, there you go. Last year, we exchanged information over the internet to the tune of 1,100 exabyte. That's 110 million times the content of the Library of Congress in 1 year. And each and every one of you in here has access to that via your smartphones that is doubtlessly in your pocket and hopefully on silent. So, in front of that background, the question is knowledge actually still power today? Now, we live in the age of the computer. The one you see here was one of the most powerful mainframes of its day. It's an IBM machine. It was so powerful, actually, that this was the machine used in ground control, used for the Apollo 11 mission to put a man on the moon. They ran the most sophisticated programs, the most complex stuff in its day. And the program size was 6 megabytes, which is actually less than 10% of Candy Crush Saga on your phone. Now, all this goes back to this man, Gordon Moore, one of the founders of Intel, who is the author of Moore's Law, which of course isn't really a law, but he basically said that roughly every 18 to 24 months, the number of transistors on a chip will double, and therefore, it's not a straight line, but it will basically mean that the computing power will double. Now when you look at the graph, you will see this is an exponential one. And, you know, it's sad to say, but Moore's Law is dying, or Intel's getting slower. But we're still waiting for the new chip generation. We are almost 3 years in. Fear not, though, because there is new stuff on the horizon, and that's quantum computing. And I have absolutely no idea what that's supposed to do, other than Justin Thoreau, who can actually explain it to you. However, we have a son who, thankfully, is a physicist, and he just filed his thesis on practical quantum computing. Fingers crossed, dude, wherever you are. So he said, look, it's actually fairly simple. What is on here is accurate. In other words, if a really fast modern computer can read, in inverted commas, every book in a library, a quantum computer can read every book in the library at once. So we're looking at several orders of magnitude in computing power that we will be adding, God knows when, in 10 years' time, in 50 years' time, soon. And all that rise in computing power allows us to look at a lot more complex problems of computing, and that is what is now known as artificial intelligence, or AI. When I grew up, this thing existed only in science fiction movies, but it's very much with us today, and I'm going to show you a little bit about this. Now, if you've been reading the papers, in particular over the last year or so, you will also have come across the term machine learning. And if you are in that space, you know exactly what it means. If not, it actually means what it says on the tin, namely, the machines are coming. Now, it starts really, really harmless. When you look, you know, this is a factory worker. And you think, come on, you know, we've had industrial robots in car factories for decades. And that is true, that's nothing new. Last summer, however, I stumbled across this headline. A company called Foxconn, which is the largest manufacturer of consumer electronics in the world. They build about a third of the entire consumer electronics in the world, including the iPhone. Now, they announced that they would replace 60,000 workers with robots. And whilst that is in itself a really scary big number, what really I thought was shocking was that this means that someone who makes $5 a day is now too expensive and therefore will be replaced by technology. The same thing you find, for instance, in warehouse logistics. Those little orange things there are robots that drive shelves towards the poor guy who still has to pack them in an Amazon warehouse. Amazon acquired that company. They want to put 50,000 of those into their various warehouses. It also works for very large packages. Port of LA, those things drive themselves. And if you want to take it a notch darker, this guy might be your next policeman. He's faster than Usain Bolt, and he lasts longer than only 100 meters. You don't outrun him. Meanwhile, in the parking lot of Uber, this friendly Dalek here is doing the parameter control and makes sure that there's no bad hombres coming in putting the world to shame. Now, yet a notch darker. If you need a sniper, if you're not a government, you probably need to go to the dark web, but you can buy this thing today. I mean, this is commercial grade killer drones. There's also, you think, well, there's other thing, but this builder can build you a house from brick and mortar in 2 days. Never draws a sickie, never needs a day of vacation, never gets ill, and never has a bad back from all those bricks. But there's also like really fun stuff. Hello, tech. There we go. So this is a pizza delivery guy. And you think, hey, dude, this is awesome, right? So I'm just dialing up Domino's and order it. Now, if you live in Auckland, New Zealand, if someone is listening, you can do this today. Because Domino's and Flirty, which is a drone maker, they actually started trialing pizza delivery via drone in November of last year. So, if you think I'm talking to you about a far-flung future, no, these things are happening today. And then you think, well, but in dense urban environments, you cannot fly a drone. And fear not, clicker. There we go. You can also get it on wheels, and it will just roll along nicely on the pavement and deliver your pizza to the front door. They went live 2 weeks ago in Washington, D.C. and Redwood City in California. And if you think pizza is all too boring, there is, of course, also a robot that can cook up to 2,000 meals. And you can buy these things. Now, Uber takes it a notch higher, not only parameter control with friendly Daleks, but they actually started trialing self-driving cars to pick up real passengers. And not only in some odd little place where no one lives, but in Pittsburgh, which is fairly densely populated. And if you don't want to ship around people but things, this truck has been trialing on the roads of Nevada for the last 4 years. Now, the backdrop to this is, worldwide, about 400 million people earn their living by shipping people or things from A to B, and they're all in the process of being potentially displaced. This is Sunday, right? We should do a bit of culture. Meet Emily Howell. You can look her up on Spotify. It's very, very gentle, nice piano music. The thing, however, is Emily Howell is an algorithm. Signed to a label for the time being. And honestly, listen to it because it's amazing. And then last autumn, I stumbled across this headline. The good folks from Google DeepMind. DeepMind is a company based out of London that was acquired by Google. And they published this really complex scientific article about WaveNet, which generates audio. And that means that the next Emily Howell will actually also be able to sing. And you wouldn't be able to tell the difference if that's a human being or not. And you might have one of those since last Christmas in your kitchen. Hey Alexa, play me a very nice song. Now, the background to voice recognition and voice output is, that's a really complex computing problem, and it is there. Let's go one further. This is that funny robot's called Dexter, and he has a very nice face, but it's also, he has cameras, so he will watch you doing things, and then he will learn from that. So if you fold a shirt, Dexter will, from you doing it, learn how to fold a shirt. Now that's pretty cool in itself. But last summer then, there were some guys from, I think it was Carnegie Mellon, who said, well, wouldn't it be cool if robots of different makes and kinds and could actually teach each other? So this isn't live yet, but they're in beta stage, and they actually start to developing languages so that you have some robot somewhere in Japan who says, "Hey guys, I really don't know how to fold a shirt. Can you help me out?" And Dexter said, "I got you." When I was little, I trained as a lawyer, and my dad said, "Look, this is son, become a lawyer, an accountant, or a doctor, right? It's you're safe." Well, guess what? I'm not. Well, I am, because I've fled the profession quickly enough. But again, last summer was a good summer for AI. Clifford Chance, one of the largest law firms in the world, one of the big Magic Circle firms in London, and Baker Hofstadter is a large law firm in the US. They both deployed different AI lawyers in their practice. In their bankruptcy practice in the US, the guys, and Clifford Chance is for one of the most lucrative parts of corporate law, which is corporate due diligence. So this is today. Now, the end result of all of this is that, we need to automation will take every job it can take. The number of people working in agriculture in the US dropped from about 90% in around 1800 to about 2% by 2010. And what you can see from that, it's not the immigrants, guys. It's automation. And yes, I am an immigrant. So you might want to ask you, what is it you do? How many repetitive tasks are in your world? So if you're an accountant, start looking. If you're a radiologist, I suggest you might want to retrain. It's very, very, anything that has repetition in there, a machine could, in theory, and I'm not saying this is going to happen tomorrow, but a machine can, in theory, do this better. Faster, cheaper, and without any vacation leave. Now, however, we are being told, right, it's not only doom and gloom. There's new clickers in town. There's new jobs for you. And when I read through this list, I'm going like, what the heck even is this? What is a memory augmentation therapist? And what on earth do you learn if you want to become a diffractive optics modeler? That's funny, isn't it? But this is an actual job ad from 2015, where someone was looking for a diffractive optics modeler. Who knows what TLDR means? Everyone else needs to speak more with the kids, guys. It's too long, didn't read. In other words, if something is so long that you couldn't be bothered to read, you look at the short summary. So Ray Kurzweil is a futurologist, or whatever you call those people. He has a scary record in being very, very accurate in his predictions. I've summarized this for you. So he basically says all this malarkey about faster computing that I spoke to you about will lead to faster innovation because we can deploy all that power. That will effectively then mean that we should be faster and better at finding solutions to really hard problems. Things like diseases and hunger and energy crisis, he said, will all be solved, which eventually will lead to immortality. Unless you're really Catholic, then probably not. Bodies will eventually become obsolete. And then the last step is that we will be one interconnected hive mind. God knows what he was smoking then. But when you think it through, there is actually a possibility. And no matter what you think about this, it means that change is coming and change is accelerating. You are very likely living in an age today where this is slowest. It will arguably accelerate through. Now, this is nothing new, right? Change alone is eternal, perpetual, and immortal. This was Schopenhauer, hundreds of years back. What I can tell you, however, is to just sit here and hope it won't happen is a bad idea. Is a really bad idea. Now, where do we go from here? I think there is a big case to be made to rebuild society because the whole demarcation line between capital and labor might be a bit unhinged, but that's an entirely different talk. There's a couple of tactical steps that can take away a little bit of your fear. The big one is education. Now, as a stopgap, human-machine collaboration. There's certain things that machines are actually struggling with, things that aren't standardized, things that, tactility and dexterity, etc. So, you can do that. But it's not only in manufacturing. It's also, you may recall last spring or so, there was an AI, AlphaGo, that beat the world's best ever, like the Roger Federer of Go. With an amazing array of neural networks. However, those were all trained on humans. So he could arguably not have done it without humans. And when you speak to scientists every day, they use massive computers and data sets to actually do that and then go with it. So there is that collaborative side. However, longer term, let's have a look at what is specifically human. Because if we can find that and define it and then nurture it, then we can arguably find a way to inoculate ourselves against that machine revolution and not end up like the poor folks in the Matrix. So there are things that are made with love. There are things that carry emotional value. Now, this is the pattern my wife cut, who's a tailor, to make me this jacket. And despite the fact that she's my beloved wife, but if you are going through that process of a bespoke jacket and you know that this, to the last buttonhole, this was handmade by a highly skilled craftsperson who do this not only for the money, but because they actually love this. This is something that a machine will struggle to replicate. Empathy is another one. Machines can actually recognize that, but they don't, of course, feel it. So any job, any action, everything that requires empathy, that's a good place to be. Creativity is one. You know those 100,000 monkeys that hack on a keyboard and eventually Ulysses will come out? That is not creativity, that's brute force computing. And again, genuine creativity is a hard one to mimic for a machine. And the last one is critical thought. Now, all of these things, all of those 4 things that I've just shown you, cannot be found on a curriculum in a school. They are, however, arguably the cornerstones that we will need in order to provide a meaningful education to our kids so that we can also educate them for jobs that we have actually no idea what they will be. But those are the cornerstones that give us a little bit of hope. In order to do that, however, we need to ride that train rather than jump in front of it. And with that, I bid you farewell. Thank you very much.